I was holding the divorce certificate in my hand. Daniel Foster's signature was still inked on it. It was over. The 3-year marriage was shattered by a judge's seal with a click just 20 minutes ago. My phone vibrated in my jeans pocket. I originally thought it was another text message from the bank urging me to pay for my credit card bill, so I didn't pay attention to it. But after it shook again and again, and there were 2 sounds in a row, I couldn't help but take it out and take a look. The first is an automatic notification from the medical institution. Your test results have been released. Please log into your account to view it. The second was a private message from the doctor I had made an appointment with the day before. Just one sentence: Emily, call me back at your convenience. We need to talk about your blood test report. I didn't know what this meant yet. I just feel panic, the kind of panic that rushes from my stomach to my throat. The parking lot was right in front. I lowered my head and walked in. I opened the medical institution's app with my finger, entered the password, and the loading circle circled for about 3 seconds. A report popped up on the screen, with the bold red font on the top line saying, Result, positive. Estimated gestational age, 7 weeks. I stopped. Instead of stopping, someone pressed the pause button on my entire body. 7 weeks. 7 weeks ago when Daniel was still at home, we even had a few words about getting a new coffee machine. During that time, he came home very late, but occasionally, we still met once or twice, like a normal couple. I thought that was him trying. It turns out not to be. It turns out that what he was working hard on during that time was to end the marriage completely. I stared at that line of words for about 10 seconds. There was no idea in my mind, it was just blank. Then I heard a voice coming from the other end of the parking lot. It was a very soft sound, it was the sound of the car door opening, and then it was Daniel's voice, with a relaxed, even gentle tone that I hadn't heard in a long time. You don't have to wait anymore. I looked up. He was standing about 10 meters away from my car, wearing the dark blue suit that I accompanied him to Beverly to buy, and his hair was combed meticulously. He was bending down to open the car door for the co-pilot, with one hand blocking the door frame, as if he was afraid that someone coming out would hit his head. Olivia Reid gets out of the car. She was wearing a cream-white dress, and her blonde hair almost glowed in the California sunshine. After she got off the car, she didn't look at Daniel. Instead, she straightened her hair first, then looked up at the roof of the city hall and smiled, as if she said, I finally got it done. Daniel closed the car door, walked around to the driver's seat, opened the door and got in. He didn't even look at me the whole time. Not even a glance. Olivia did see it. She looked at me for about a second from a distance of about 15 meters. Just for a second, then she looked away, lowered her head and took out her phone, as if she saw an insignificant passerby. The car started, backed out of the parking space, and drove away through the exit on the other side. I stood there and watched the black Range Rover disappear around the exit corner. The screen of the mobile phone in my hand had automatically turned off. I lowered my head and glanced, and the screen lit up again, with the same line of words, estimated gestational age, 7 weeks. I don't know how long I stood there. It could be 30 seconds, it could be a minute. Then I unlocked the phone, opened the text message, and found Daniel's dialog box. Our last message was from him 3 days ago, 10 a.m., Tuesday, City Hall, don't be late. I typed a line and then deleted it. I typed a line and then deleted it. Finally I typed a sentence and clicked send. Wish you a better life. The second I pressed the send button, I even smiled. It's not a forced smile, it's really funny. Because I suddenly figured out one thing: these 3 years, my entire marriage has been a long, decent, tacit transition between both parties. And I was just filler in that transitional period. I didn't cry. I even thought I should cry, but I didn't. I walked into the parking lot and got into my 2019 Honda Civic. The moment I closed the door, the entire parking lot was so quiet that it was like the whole world had forgotten me. I started the car, put it in gear, drove out of City Hall, and walked south along Figueroa Street. I didn't know where I was going, I just drove on. Los Angeles spread out in front of me outside the car window. Palm trees, billboards, freeway entrances, everything was normal. No one in the world knows that I just got the divorce papers, and no one knows that I have a 7-week-old little thing in my belly that I don't know what to do with. I stopped at a traffic light with a crumpled divorce certificate on the passenger seat. I looked at it and suddenly remembered that Daniel's hand paused for a moment when he was signing, maybe a few tenths of a second. I thought he was going to say something like sorry, or at least take care. But he didn't say anything. After signing, he put down the pen, stood up, pushed the chair back, and left. He didn't even look at me. I just sat there, waiting for the soft sound he made when he pushed the chair back, which became the last sound of our marriage. The light turned green, and the car behind me honked. I stepped on the accelerator with only one thought in my mind: I was going to the hospital. The next morning, I went to the gynecology clinic in downtown Los Angeles alone. I didn't tell anyone, not because I was embarrassed, but because I didn't have anyone to tell. My parents were in Arizona and I had very few friends, even fewer after I got married. Daniel doesn't like socializing, and I'm not very good at it, so after 3 years, we were almost an island. The front desk of the clinic asked me to fill out a form. I checked single and left the emergency contact field blank. The front desk took a look, said nothing, handed me a paper cup, and asked me to go to the bathroom to take a sample. After the B ultrasound, the doctor asked me to wait in the examination room. The room was small, with light blue walls and a poster showing fetal development cycles. I sat on the hospital bed covered with disposable paper, dangling my feet in the air, and swayed twice. The door opened, and a female doctor in her 40s walked in, wearing glasses and holding my B ultrasound results in her hand. She sat down opposite me, looked at me, and then said something that I thought about for a long time. "Did you see that?" She turned the screen around to show me. The gray-white picture is blurry, like an old photo. But there was a small, curled-up shape in the center, about the size of a blueberry. The cursor on the screen was flashing, and a small dot was beating. "This is a heartbeat," the doctor said. I stared at the beating, for about 5 seconds without saying anything. The doctor didn't rush me, she just waited quietly. Then she asked a question. "Do you want this baby? Do I want this child?" I opened my mouth to say no. I had already thought about it last night. I had already checked that it would be painless to terminate the pregnancy in the first trimester. I could go home that day and go to work normally the next day. I should say no because I have no job, no husband, no money, I have nothing. I haven't even collected this month's rent yet. How can I raise a child? But as I stared at the pulsating on the screen, an idea suddenly popped into my head. He is the only person in this world who doesn't regard me as a substitute. Daniel has never thought of me as Emily. I was the one who showed up during the hiatus after he and Olivia broke up. I was the one who showed up at the right age when he needed to get married. I am the person who has a gentle personality, is neither noisy nor fussy, and is just right for being a wife. But it was never the person he wanted to marry. His friends call me Daniel's wife, but no one calls me Emily. At a gathering of his colleagues, Olivia's name would be mentioned, and everyone would look at me. That look was all too familiar to me, with a little sympathy, a little curiosity, and a little subtext of "Why aren't you leaving yet?" I thought he loved me. I thought the hot cocoa he brought me home late at night, the Netflix we watched together on weekends, and the occasional "You're so kind" were all love. But it turns out those things were just a man's kindness to a roommate he shared. And now, this little thing on the screen, it doesn't have any presets, it doesn't have any substitutions, it doesn't have any "I would have wanted someone else." It's just an embryo, a blueberry, a pulsating dot. It's just mine. "Yes," I heard myself say. The voice was soft but sure. The doctor nodded, turned the screen back, and began to tell me about the upcoming prenatal checkup arrangements, nutritional supplements, and precautions. I listened, nodded, and took notes. When I walked out of the clinic, the sun in Los Angeles was still so strong. I stretched out my hand to block it, and suddenly felt that the palms of my hands were warm. I don't know if this decision is right, but I know it is the first decision in my life that is completely my own. Marrying Daniel was not my decision, it was my decision when the time came, he asked, and I agreed. The divorce was not my decision. He prepared the documents, put them on the table, said "Let's talk," and then I signed it. My whole life seems to be waiting for others to give me multiple choice questions, and then I choose the one that is not too bad among the options. But this time, no one gave me an option. I wrote one myself. Over the next few days, I moved out of the 2-bedroom apartment we lived in Pasadena. He chose the apartment, he ordered the decoration, and he picked out the furniture. I just move it in, like a piece of luggage. So when I moved out, I didn't have any hesitation. I found an old apartment in Koreatown, with 1 bedroom and 1 living room. The floor was a little warped and the windows faced the wall of another building, but the rent was cheap. I moved my stuff in, a few boxes of clothes, a box of books, a laptop, and some kitchen utensils. On the day of moving, I moved 7 times by myself. On the last trip, the Mexican aunt next door poked her head out, glanced at me, and said something in Spanish. I didn't understand it, but she handed me a bottle of water. I said thank you and she smiled and closed the door. That was the first person in this city who took the initiative to smile at me. Pregnancy was harder than I thought it would be. In the first 3 months, I could hardly eat anything, and the smell of cooking fumes made me want to vomit. But I dare not skip meals because the doctor said the fetus needs nutrition. I sat on the kitchen floor, broke the soda crackers into small pieces, and stuffed them into my mouth bit by bit. After eating, I lay on the floor and waited for the nausea to pass. I had no job and only had enough savings to last a few months. I started looking for things to do online, anything. Then I discovered an opportunity. There were more and more young mothers in Los Angeles looking for organic baby food, but most of the products on the market were produced in big factories with added sugar and preservatives. I knew how to make real organic purees as a kid growing up on my grandma's farm. I started testing recipes in my home kitchen. Apple puree, carrot puree, pea puree, nothing added, just pure fruits and vegetables. I used the old blender that Daniel left behind to crush the ingredients, sift them, put them into glass jars, and label them. I made the first batch of 20 cans, took a few photos, and posted them online for sale. The price is not high at $8 a jar. No one bought it on the first day, and no one bought it on the second day. On the third day, a mother ordered 2 cans and left a message saying, "It looks good, give it a try." I delivered 2 cans of puree to her house on my bicycle. When she opened the door, she held a baby who was about 6 months old in her arms. She took a look at my jar and said, "The packaging is quite clean." I said thank you and left. I kept refreshing the page after I got home. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the mother left a comment, "My baby likes it very much. Will buy again." I stared at the screen for 10 minutes just with that sentence. Then the orders started coming. 1 order, 2 orders, 5 orders. By the 3rd month, I was selling over 200 cans a month. It wasn't much money, but it was enough to pay rent and buy materials. I started putting sticky notes in the kitchen, recording recipes, and calculating costs. The most expensive piece of furniture in the whole apartment was the blender. I washed it clean every night and used it again the next morning. By the time I was 32 weeks pregnant, I couldn't make large batches of purees. My belly is so big that my waist hurts when I stand in the kitchen for more than an hour. But I still take orders every day, but the quantity is smaller. I set a rule for myself, no matter how tired I am, I should stand in the kitchen for 10 minutes every night before going to bed, wipe all the tools and clean the countertop. Those 10 minutes were the quietest time of my day. I could hear the traffic on the highway outside the window, the aunt next door watching TV, and the occasional movement of the little thing in my belly. I don't know if he's a boy or a girl, I didn't check. I want to leave a surprise, or in other words, I want to leave a surprise that I can give myself. It was 3 o'clock in the morning on the day of delivery. I woke up in bed with a burst of pain. I thought it was false contractions at first, but then the pain became more and more regular, and I realized that it was coming. I took an Uber to the hospital. The driver was an Indian uncle. Seeing that I was alone, he asked me if I wanted to help. I said no, thank you. When I arrived at the hospital entrance, I walked in by myself, went through the procedures, and filled out the form, but the emergency contact column was still empty. The nurse asked me if there was anyone I could notify, and I said no. She glanced at me without saying anything, then handed me a hospital gown and asked me to change into it. The labor process was very long, lasting from early morning to the afternoon of the next day. There was a moment when I was almost unconscious from the pain, clutching the bed rail with my fingernails digging into the plastic. The midwife shouted push next to me, and I pushed. Once she shouted, I pressed once. I didn't have anyone in mind. I didn't miss Daniel, I didn't miss Olivia, I didn't miss my parents. I was just thinking about one thing, I wanted him to come out. I want him to see the world. Then I heard a cry. Very small, very thin, like a kitten. But that cry made the entire delivery room quiet. He stopped crying when the midwife put him on my chest. His eyes were open, gray-blue, like 2 water drops. He looked at me with a look I had never seen in my life, complete, unconditional trust. He didn't know I was divorced. He didn't know I had no money. He didn't know I lived in an apartment with a window facing a wall. He didn't know that my ex-husband opened the car door for another woman the same day he signed the divorce papers. He had no idea how much of a joke my life had been so far. He only knows me as his mother. Noah. I said softly. Noah. Noah. Ark, a new beginning after the flood. He blinked as if to say I got it. The days after I was discharged from the hospital were very difficult, but strangely, I didn't feel any pain. Noah had to nurse every 2 hours, and I rarely slept for more than 3 hours straight. During the day, I also make fruit puree, take orders, pack and ship. I put him in the baby rocking chair by the kitchen door and sang to him while I stirred. He didn't know what I was singing, but he would laugh. The first time he laughed was when he was about 6 weeks old. I was taking a pot of apple puree off the stove, burned my hands, and made a hissing noise. When he heard it, he smiled, showing two toothless gums. I froze, then laughed too. That was the first time anyone laughed in my apartment. Business is slowly picking up. I started posting some videos on social media of making puree. There were no edits or filters, just the process of cutting apples, cooking carrots, and canning them in the kitchen. I don't know why, but many people like to watch it. In the comments, someone said, "It looks very healing." Some said, "I want to make it myself, too." Others asked directly, how to buy it. I started to officially register a brand called Noah's Kitchen. The name is very tacky, but I like it. The logo was drawn by myself, with an apple on top of a spoon. The revenue in the first year was not much, about more than $20,000 US, just enough to live on. It doubled the next year. In the third year, a local maternal and child store chain in Los Angeles approached me and asked me if I would like to join. I signed the contract, and when the first batch of goods was delivered, I stood in the warehouse and watched the workers loading boxes of purees onto the truck. Suddenly, I felt a sore nose. Not because all the hardships are over, but because I remember the time 3 years ago when I was sitting on the kitchen floor eating soda crackers. At that time, I thought my life would be like this, an abandoned woman, an unmarried mother, and a person who couldn't even support myself. But it turns out not to be. When Noah was 3 years old, my brand was already well known in California. The annual revenue exceeded 500,000 yuan, so I rented a small warehouse as a production room and hired 2 employees. Maria, a Mexican mother of 3 children, can make puree faster than me. The other one is Jessica, a recent college graduate who helps me with orders and social media. I get up at 6 o'clock every morning, take Noah to daycare, then go to the warehouse, work until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, pick him up, cook, play with him, and put him to sleep. Life is like a programmed routine that repeats every day, but I don't feel bored. Noah started talking. The first word he said was not mama, it was apple. Because he watches me cutting apples every day, he thinks apples are the most important thing in the world. His eyes are still gray-blue, like Daniel's. But the rest looks like me, with dark brown hair, a round face, and a nose that wrinkles up when I smile. I try not to think about Daniel. But sometimes, like when Noah falls asleep on the sofa, I look at the shadow cast by his eyelashes and think of the way Daniel opened the door for Olivia that day in the City Hall parking lot. I wonder, does he know? Does he know I'm pregnant? Did he know he had a son? Then I will suppress the thought. Because the answer doesn't matter anymore. Whether he knows or not, whether he chooses or not, has nothing to do with me. It took me 3 years to put my life together, and I won't allow anyone to tear it down again. But life is not what you want it to be. When Noah was 3.5 years old, I did an interview. A local business magazine in Los Angeles noticed my brand and wanted to do a startup story. They sent a reporter to the warehouse, took photos, and asked questions. I talked a lot about how it started, how I survived alone, and how I turned an idea in a small kitchen into a brand. I didn't mention Daniel. I mentioned Noah, but only that he was my motivation, not who his father was. After the interview was released, the response was huge. Maybe it's because the combination of the labels single mother, organic baby food and from scratch just hit something. The article was retweeted thousands of times, and my website traffic increased tenfold overnight. Then one day, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number, a Los Angeles area code. I thought it was a customer and answered. Emily. When I heard this voice, the cup in my hand almost fell to the ground. It's Daniel. His voice was still the same, low and controlled, and every word seemed to have been weighed on a scale. After more than 3 years, I thought I had forgotten this voice, but it turned out not to be the case. Your body will remember things you don't even want to remember, like the way a person's vocal cords vibrate. How do you know my number? I asked. Public on your company website. I was silent for a moment. What do you want to do? I want to see you. When I heard this sentence, my first reaction was not anger nor sadness, but fear. I don't know what I'm afraid of, but my stomach shrinks, as if I'm being grabbed. That's not necessary, I said, and hung up the phone. I put the phone on the table, my hands shaking. I don't know why he is looking for me, and I don't know why I am shaking. For 3 years, I trained myself to be a person who doesn't need anyone. I get up at 5:50 in the morning and go to bed at 11 in the evening. I fill every minute of these 17 hours without leaving any space to think about what if. If he's here, if he's around, if he's not gone. But now, with just one phone call from him, all these what-ifs were resurrected. He hit another one the next day. I didn't answer. On the third day, he sent a text message. Emily, I know Noah. I stared at this text message for about 10 minutes. He knows Noah. He knew he had a son. He'd known for 3 years and he never showed up. I didn't reply. On the 4th day, he appeared directly at the door of the warehouse. When I opened the door to go out to send the express, I saw him standing in the parking lot, leaning against a silver Tesla, wearing a gray t-shirt. He was thinner than 3 years ago, with shorter hair and a little stubble on his chin. When he saw me, his expression changed. I don't know what that expression is. It might be surprise, it might be guilt, or it might be nothing, just my illusion. Emily, he said. I stood at the door and didn't move forward. How did you find this place? You mentioned the warehouse area in your interview. I drove around and looked for it. I nodded. I don't know what to say. I should have yelled at him. I should have slammed the door in his face. I should have called the police. But I did nothing, just stood there like a robot that had been suddenly unplugged. He took a step forward. I know you're pregnant, he said. Your doctor called me the day you went to City Hall. Your emergency contact still has my number. I was stunned. You know? I know. The day you got the divorce papers at City Hall, you were pregnant. I knew that day. It was like someone had pressed the fast-forward button in my mind, and everything came up in 1 second. I went to the hospital alone, had a B ultrasound alone, decided to keep Noah alone, moved alone, gave birth alone, survived those sleepless nights alone, and put my life together alone. And he, Daniel, Noah's father, knew it from the beginning. You know, but you've never been here. My voice was calm, as if I was talking about something that had nothing to do with me. He didn't speak. You never called, never sent a message, never came to see him. I said, you know he exists, you let him come into this world alone, and you let me raise him alone. Emily, why didn't you show up? My voice suddenly became louder, and I was startled. Maria in the warehouse poked her head out to take a look, and I waved my hand to her, indicating that it was okay. Daniel was silent for a long time. Then he said something, which made me feel that all my hard work, all my strength, and all my I can be alone in the past 3 years have turned into a joke. I thought you would hate me. I thought you would hate me. I stared at him as if I were staring at someone I had never seen before. What do you think? My voice was trembling. I thought you would hate me when you knew the truth. I thought you didn't want to see me. I thought my presence would only make things worse. What do you think is the truth? He was silent again. Then he told me something. This incident shattered my entire worldview into pieces in that second. He said, do you still remember when you went bankrupt? Of course I remember. Before I divorced Daniel, I had a savings of about $80,000, which I saved from working for several years. 2 months before my divorce, I received an investment opportunity, a project introduced by a friend, which was said to be a guaranteed profit. I put all my money in, and then the guy disappeared. The money is gone, and so are the people. I thought I was stupid. I thought it was my fault in judgment, that I was too naive, and that I deserved it. But now Daniel tells me that Scammer is Olivia's distant relative. When I heard this sentence, my whole body seemed to be pushed from behind. Olivia's relative? Yes. She arranged it. Why? Daniel looked at me, and there was something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Not guilt, but something deeper and more complex. Because she doesn't want you to still have money after my divorce. I stood in the doorway of the warehouse, the Los Angeles sun shining on my back, but I felt cold. She knew I was divorcing you. She didn't want you to walk away with the money. She felt that if you had nothing, you would disappear completely and never be in my life again. So you got it, I said. I understand. When did you know that? The 2nd week after you were cheated on. What did you do? I settled it privately. I compensated part of the money to the relative and asked him not to come to you again. But you can't get your money back because he has already spent it. You lost part of the money to him? Right. You paid the guy who cheated on your ex-wife to shut up? Daniel said nothing. Daniel Foster, you paid scammers to shut up, and then you watched me go bankrupt, watched me move out, watched me get pregnant, give birth, and live alone with a baby in a crappy apartment in Koreatown, and you, my voice broke. It's not because I don't want to say it, it's because my throat seems to be blocked by something. And you, driving your Range Rover, living in your apartment in Pasadena, with Olivia Reed. You know what you were doing while I was nibbling cookies on the floor? Are you buying her that creamy white dress? Are you opening the car door for her? Are you telling her you don't have to wait anymore? Emily, you didn't show up, not because you were afraid that I would hate you. You don't show up because you choose not to show up. These two are not the same thing. He finally stopped talking. I took a deep breath, closed the door, and locked it. I didn't look at him again. I leaned behind the door, slowly squatted down, and buried my face in my knees. Maria came over and asked me what was wrong. I said it was okay and asked her to go back to work. I squatted behind the door for about 10 minutes, then stood up, washed my face, and continued working. Cut the apples, cook the carrots, can them, label them. My hands were doing the work, but my mind was spinning. He got it. He knew it from the beginning. He knew I was pregnant, he knew I was broke, he knew I had nothing left. But he didn't come. It's not because I don't know, it's because I chose not to come. This hurts more than betrayal. Betrayal at least means you were there. And his choice shows that I have never been among his choices. The days after that got weird. Daniel started to show up. Not the dramatic, kneeling at the door begging for forgiveness kind of appearance, but a more subtle, unsettling kind of appearance. He showed up at the door of Noah's daycare. When I picked Noah up from school, I saw his car parked on the side of the road. He didn't get out of the car, just sat inside and watched. Noah saw the silver car and asked, "Mom, who is that?" I said no one. He showed up at Noah's football game. When Noah just turned 4, I enrolled him in a community football class and played in the park every Saturday morning. Daniel sat in the last row of the stands, wearing sunglasses and watching Noah running around on the grass. Noah kicked a goal and he applauded from a distance. Noah looked back and couldn't find anyone applauding, but I did. He showed up at Noah's birthday party. We didn't have a party, we just cut a cake at home. Daniel stood under the apartment building, holding a gift in his hand. He stood for a long time, and finally placed the gift on the doorstep and left. When I opened the door and saw the gift, the wrapping paper said to Noah, "It is a picture book about a boy and a dog." I put the picture book on the table without showing it to Noah. But Noah started asking. That night he was playing with his rubber duck in the bathtub when he suddenly looked up at me and said, "Mom, why don't I have a dad?" My hand holding the towel paused. Everyone else has a dad. Jake has a dad, Sophie has a dad, Leo has 2 dads. Why don't I? I knelt down and looked into his eyes. Those gray-blue eyes were exactly the same as Daniel's. "You have a father," I said. "Where is he?" "He's far away." "Why doesn't he come to see me?" "Because he..." I couldn't find a suitable word. "Because I can't say, because he chose not to come." For a 4-year-old child, this answer is too cruel. But I can't say because he loves you but can't come because this is false. Because he doesn't know where we are. I finally said this. Noah thought for a while and said, "Then can you tell him?" I didn't answer. Daniel started showing up more frequently. He wasn't just watching from afar anymore. He started waiting for me at the door of the nursery and said, "I want to meet Noah." I said no. He said, "Then I will continue to wait." He waited for 3 days. On the 4th day, when Noah came out of the nursery, he saw him directly. Noah didn't recognize him, but when Daniel squatted down, Noah wasn't afraid. He glanced at Daniel, then at me. "Mom, who is this person?" Daniel looked at Noah, his lips moved but he said nothing. "He is." I started, but I couldn't go on. "I'm your dad," Daniel said. Noah blinked. "Are you far away?" Daniel was stunned for a moment. "What? Mom said you were somewhere far away. Did you take a long car ride?" Daniel glanced at me, then nodded to Noah. "Yes, I've been in the car for a long time." "Then why did you come?" This question silenced Daniel completely. That night, after Noah fell asleep, I sat in the living room and Daniel stood in the doorway. The distance between us was like a gap of 3 years. "You can't suddenly appear in front of him like this." I said. "I know. Do you know what this means to a child?" "I know. Do you know how I got here in the past 3 years?" "I know." "You don't know." I suddenly stood up. "You don't know what it's like to give birth alone in the hospital. You don't know what it's like to drive to the emergency room alone at 3 in the morning when your child has a fever. You don't know what it's like to be in the supermarket and put something back on the shelf because you don't have enough money. You don't know." My voice breaks again. Daniel took a step forward. "I know I'm not here. I know I'm not qualified. But I think, what are you thinking? Do you want to atone for your sins? Do you want to be a dad?" "Daniel, you are not a father who is 3 years late, you are a father who never shows up. These two are not the same thing." He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes that I couldn't explain. "Then what can I do?" I took a deep breath. 3 months. I said. "What? 3 months of observation period. You are not here to atone for your sins, you are here to bear them. Pick Noah up every week to go to the park, play football with him, and take him to lunch. If he adapts, we'll talk about the rest. If you are late once, disappear once, and disappoint Noah once, you will never show up again." Daniel nodded. "And," I said, "don't come to me. Your relationship with Noah is between you and Noah. I have nothing to do with you." He looked at me as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he just nodded. 3 months has begun. Daniel was never late once. Every Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning, he appears downstairs on time and rings the doorbell. Noah would run over when he heard the doorbell, tiptoeing to open the door, and smile when he saw Daniel, showing his 2 missing front teeth. They go to the park, to the museum, to the children's playground. Daniel bought him ice cream, taught him how to ride a bicycle, and took him to baseball games. Noah is always in high spirits when he comes back, telling me what he did today, what he ate, and what his father said. I looked at him and felt a strange feeling in my heart. It's not jealousy or relief, but something more complicated that I can't explain clearly. It's like standing inside the window on a very cold winter day and seeing someone basking in the sun outside. You know the sun is warm, but you don't want to go out. Daniel is very disciplined. Every time he comes, he only picks up Noah and sends him back, and he doesn't speak to me more than 3 times. But sometimes I can feel him looking at me. His gaze is very short and quick, as if he is afraid of being discovered by me. On the last Saturday of the 3rd month, when he sent Noah back, Noah had already fallen asleep in his car. He carried Noah upstairs, put him on the bed, took off his shoes, and covered him with a quilt. He stood by the bed and looked at Noah for a long time, then turned around and came out. I was waiting for him in the living room. 3 months are up, he said. I know. Can I continue? I looked into his eyes. Those gray-blue eyes were exactly the same as Noah's. You decide, I said. He nodded and turned to leave. Then the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw a man standing in the corridor. Olivia Reed. She was thinner than 3 years ago, her blonde hair was cut short, and she was wearing a black suit jacket that made her look like a knife. She glanced at me, then glanced at Daniel behind me, and smiled. That smile is all too familiar to me. It was her smile when she announced, I am the protagonist. Daniel, she said, we need to talk. Daniel stood behind me and said nothing. Olivia walked in as if she were walking into her own home, sat down on the sofa and crossed her legs. You've spent a lot of time here recently. She looked at Daniel. Your partners are asking you if you want to quit the company. Your investors are asking if you still have the energy to manage the project. Your dash I know. Daniel said. You know? Olivia smiled. Do you know that you were absent from 3 board meetings last month? Do you know that the deal worth $20 million almost failed because of your absence? I said I know. Then do you know what you are doing? Olivia stood up and walked to him. What are you doing? Are you atonement? Are you being a good father? Daniel, you are already 3 years too late. What's the point of doing this now? The meaning is not for you to judge, Daniel said. Olivia's smile faded. She looked at me with a look that seemed to tear me apart. Emily, she said, do you know what happened back then? I didn't speak. Do you know why he married you? Olivia. Daniel's voice changed. Because he broke up with me and he needs a substitute. You are that substitute. Do you think he loves you? He doesn't even want to care about your pregnancy. He spent my relatives' money to shut you up and then let you have the baby alone. Are you sick if you let him appear in your life now? This sentence was like a slap, but it didn't hit me in the face, it hit me in the chest. I looked at her and suddenly felt very calm. That kind of calmness is not something I fake, but something I spent 3 years polishing myself into. Are you done? I asked. She was stunned for a moment. You're done, please leave. You, Olivia. Daniel took a step forward. That's enough. Enough? She looked at him. Daniel, do you want her, or everything you have now? Daniel looked at her and was silent. For a long time. Then he did something. He walked to the door, opened it, and looked at her. Get out. Olivia's expression changed. That expression that never appears on the face of a refined egoist, shock. What did you say? I'll tell you. I'll handle the company's matters. We're done with your matters. You're crazy. Olivia said, you're crazy, Daniel. Do you know what you have lost? I know. He said, but I know better what I have lost. It has been too long. Olivia looked at him, then at me, then smiled. That smile was no longer delicate, but had a twisted look after being defeated. You'll regret it. She finished speaking and walked out. The door is closed. The room was so quiet that you could hear Noah turning over in the bedroom. Daniel stood at the door, his hand still on the doorknob. You shouldn't do this. I said. I should. Your firm, your partners, those are not important. Those are important. Emily, he turned and looked at me. I don't care about much anymore. Noah is one. You are another. I looked into his eyes, those gray-blue eyes. I don't need you to love us out of guilt. I said. I'm not doing it out of guilt. What's that for? He was silent for a long time. Because I finally know what's right. That night, Noah woke up. He walked out of the bedroom, rubbed his eyes, and saw Daniel still in the living room. He was stunned for a moment, and then smiled. Dad, you haven't left yet? Daniel knelt down and looked at him. Do you want Dad to go? Noah shook his head. Daniel reached out and picked him up. Noah lay on his shoulder, and soon fell asleep again. Daniel carried him into the bedroom and put him on the bed. Noah's little hand reached out in his sleep and grabbed Daniel's finger. Daniel didn't move. He just sat on the edge of the bed, letting Noah hold his fingers, motionless. I stood at the door and watched. Then I walked in and stood next to him. You can't stay because you feel guilty, I said. I won't. You stay because you choose us. Every day. He looked up at me. Every day. I looked at Noah's fingers holding Daniel's index finger, small and tight, as if he was afraid that he would run away. I didn't say, I forgive you. Because I'm not sure if I've really forgiven. Some wounds cannot be healed by saying sorry, and some gaps cannot be filled up and disappeared. But I opened the door. I kept that door closed for 3 years, locked it for 3 years, and blocked it with work, children, and I can do it alone. Now, I'm open. It's not because I don't hate it anymore. It's because I don't want Noah to ask me why doesn't Dad come to see me in the bathtub again? It's because I don't want to drive to the emergency room alone at 3 in the morning again. It's because I don't want to put things back on the shelves in the supermarket anymore. It's because I want a choice. Not a chosen replacement, not a filler in the interim, not someone who just happens to be there at that moment. It's a conscious, non-humble choice I made on my own. Daniel was standing in the living room, and Noah was asleep in the bedroom. His little hand still kept the holding position, even though the fingers were no longer there. The night view of Los Angeles was bright outside the window, and the sound of traffic on the highway in the distance was faint. I turned off the light in the bedroom, walked to the living room, and sat down on the sofa. Daniel sat at the other end. Noah wakes up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I said, he likes pancakes and wants blueberries. Okay. He has to bring a water bottle to daycare, not juice. Okay. His football shoes are blue and they are on the second floor of the shoe cabinet at the door. Okay. I said a lot and he said yes. Then we stopped talking. The room is very quiet. You can hear the refrigerator compressor making an occasional sound. As I looked out the window at the city, I suddenly remembered that afternoon in the City Hall parking lot 3 years ago. The sun was dazzling, so he opened the door for her and said, you don't have to wait any longer. 3 years. The person sitting in my living room now is no longer the person holding the door open for someone else. He's not even Noah's father anymore. He's just a man who chose to sit here. And I am no longer the woman standing in the parking lot texting, I wish you a better life. I'm Emily Carter, founder of Noah's Kitchen. A woman who crawled out of a crappy apartment in Koreatown. A woman broke a soda cracker into small pieces and stuffed them into her mouth. A woman shouting push alone in the delivery room. I did it. I don't need anyone to complete me. But I no longer lock the door. It's dawn in Los Angeles. The first ray of sunlight shines in through the window, shining on the coffee table, the picture book Daniel brought, and the painting Noah posted on the refrigerator. Noah called Mom and then Dad in the bedroom. Daniel stood up and walked into the bedroom. I heard Noah's voice, hoarse as if he had just woken up. Dad, you're here. I'm here. Will you always be there? Daniel was silent for a second, then said, I would choose to be. Every day. I stood in the living room and didn't cry when I heard these words. But the corners of my mouth moved. Not because it has a happy ending, but because I finally know, you are not chosen because you are worthy. Being chosen because someone is willing. And willingness is the only thing in the world that does not require a reason.